days. So I said, I got to run this by Dr. Valentine because I know you talked about this years ago. You talked about a lot of this, I mean, years ago. So I had to run it by you and want you to touch base with the family about this so we could see exactly what's going on July 4th, the red, white, and blue, the fireworks, all that stuff. But before I do, like I said, an announcement, you are doing a rebroadcast of the webinar you just had. And I have the link in the description. I'm going to post it in the chat. Can you tell the people exactly what's going on with the rebroadcast, my brother?
Well, I've got a whole lot of feedback from around the world about the webinar, and they said that even though it lasted for 12 hours, it went by too quickly for some. They took a lot of information. A lot of other people said that the letters or the reading and the words that I put up there were blurred. And thank you, darling. And the I told them to check their, the what is that, the Wi-Fi, because I was getting very good responses from people who were looking at it, and they said they could read it quite fine. But what I did know that a lot of people around the world, I got even somebody from Egypt. I got people from Australia, London, and another person from Sweden. Give thanks. And a lot of the people from around our country, from Canada, it was all over the world. And it was such a wonderful, I felt so good doing it that I could have gone for another 10 hours while I was presenting it. So I want everybody, they said, please run it back again, and for those who missed it and so forth. And I'm hoping that as you're listening to it and your people are listening to it, that you please, thank you. Wow.
That's big, right? One of the best webinar. Wow.
Give
Whoa.
thanks. And
Whoa.
I wanted to give this back to the people, and it's going to be kind of the precursor to the launching of my new website, which will be called Webinar Archive. And I'm going to break these webinars that I've done all the way back to the 2000s. All of them are going to be able to be seen, streamed in real time, because we had a hard time trying to find a place to stream it because people were refusing us. Every time we went to a platform, they refused it because of the content. So that's why it delayed me being able to put all of my webinars and other things together so that I could actually present them to the people. So please, we're going to have it on the 22nd. Brother King Simon, he and Brother Lloyd Strayhorn are my number gurus. And King Simon said that the double twos are going to be a very powerful time, and to do that on the 22nd would be a real powerful time for that to occur. So please let your people know if they had missed it and they want to see the replay. I'm going to throw it down again on the 22nd, this time at 12 noon. Was it 12 noon? I think at 12 noon. We're going to go from 12 noon to 12 midnight this time. So everybody, it's for those of you who are coming in late, or especially my brothers and sisters in London who had to, get away and go back to sleep because essentially they're 5 hours ahead of us. So it's very difficult for them to stay with us. But like I said, please spread the word. Let them know that I will be rebroadcasting that particular webinar, and it is the dealing with reality. We're going to be doing a reassessment of reality. I know the title, but understand it in layman's terms: a reassessment of the reality that you're actually living in, psychology, the epistemology, all of that. And hopefully you all will hang around the same way you did the last time.
Indeed, indeed. All right. Shout out to King Simon in the chat. He also has a lot of Doc's info, PayPal, email, contact. That info is also in the description. So y'all could definitely hit up Doc and not miss anything that the brother has to offer. So to as I hear the fireworks outside and move on to tonight's topic, my brother. Listen, Doc, we in so-called year 2023. I mean, we've been lied to so much. We
Mhm.
don't. I mean, it's so confusing at this point. One minute you hear something is good, one minute is bad. In terms of the holidays, in terms of the holy days, in terms of July 4th, what can you tell us? We hear so many people regurgitating information, but I want to know the brother who talked about this in the 80s and the 90s. I want to hear what you got to say, my brother, about this serious connection. We read about Sirius and July 4th, my brother. What can you just start out with in general? What can you tell us about that?
Well, at this particular time, and under our so-called present paradigm structure, in reality, the fourth of this particular time, or the fourth of July, was actually celebrated as a secret Masonic uh, holiday, and rituals were taking place, of course, during this time to reinforce those who are in power. But the fourth is where, if you want to deal with astrotheology, Sirius co-joins the sun at about 13.5 degrees of Cancer, and that happens through the first 7 days of July.
Mm,
And while you're dealing with the first 7 days of July, uh, Leo, which is the heart energy,
mhm,
is prominent, and you could see it above the horizon, and it's got what you call the backward question mark, and you see it rising out of what is known as the star. The brightest star in Leo is called Regulus,
mhm.
and you could see the backward. You know what a question mark is like. Well,
Yeah.
if you look at it backwards, that becomes the lion's head, and it empties out into what we see as a Regulus, and you see that brightest star when you're dealing with Regulus. Regulus is the heart star. It was known as the heart star, which
Mm.
is why most people don't know that back in the day, the election times were actually held in Cancer.
Mm.
You
Go ahead,
see,
Doc. Wow. Go
now the
ahead.
election times were held in Cancer because at that time people were more empathetic. They
Mhm,
were more nurturing because of the mother. Your Cancer is the mother energy,
mhm,
and the Regulus, or the lion, it was called the lion-hearted lawgiver. That's
mhm,
who Regulus was. So this was the perfect time for those who were astrologers and astronomers and the numerologists, for them to do their thing when it came to bringing the country together and hopefully coalescing. Even though there was slavery going on, these white folks were using our energies and our sciences in order for them to bring together that particular energy that they had started, which they call the 13 colonies. And it wasn't the Declaration of Independence, family. That was the white boy snatching our A Declaration of Independence.
mm, mm.
It was not the Declaration of Independence, it was a
Hey,
Declaration of Independence. And that was us getting ourselves away from Black King George.
Black King George.
Yeah. And so, the entire, at the time, British royalty was part black. And most people are not really letting anybody know. uh,
Mhm,
as far as history is concerned. So Regulus is the lion-hearted lawgiver, and it focuses the evolutionary and revolutionary energies of Sirius towards Earth, and acts as the subconscious impetus for independent thought and the desire for freedom, which is essentially why they would have elections during this time.
mhm,
Everybody was more in a celebratory mode. They were more about coming together and so forth.
mhm,
So the oh, by the way, I just want to go ahead and deal with brothers and sisters who are veterans and who've seen combat and have been in wartime situations. Back in the days when I was in New York, I had a lot of veterans who've seen war, who've seen combat,
mhm,
and when these firecrackers and all that's going off,
mhm,
a lot of people who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder
mhm.
would go through a lot of emotional changes,
Wow. Yeah.
and they would start shaking. They would call me up and say, "Doc, just talk to me, let me just hear your voice on the phone." And all in background in the phone, I could hear pop 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 pop. So you could imagine what it must be like when you're in combat, and that all that memory starts rushing back because you're hearing essentially what sounds like a battlefield out there, especially when these guys are taking off with this. So
Mhm.
shout out to all you brothers. Hopefully, just plug your ears if it's not something that you want to hear.
Mhm.
Please, sequester yourself. Anyway, now during that time of the year, the sun in Cancer and the prominence of the star Regulus causes human consciousness and emotions to be more focused in the heart and in nurturing more empathy and concern for others. It was then in 1845 Congress passed a federal law designating the first Tuesday following the first Monday in November. Now, the reason for that was because they put us into Scorpius. Okay. Now,
Mhm.
what is Scorpius? It's the constellation of extremes.
Mhm.
Think about that. The
Mhm.
constellation of extremes. The tendency towards uncontrolled emotions, the tendency towards violent flare-ups, and these are the downsides, of course, of the Scorpius energy, and the tendency towards self-destruction, overemphasis on self-preservation, volatility, secretness, um, a resistance to change.
Mhm.
There's a lot of what that particular energy represents, and it has negative vibrations which thrive on manipulation, which is why you watch these people running for president. They're basing most of their narrative on manipulation. Watch
Oh,
what's going on, because
okay.
when you're getting ready to go into 2024, you're going to see more and more of the manipulation based upon them telling you, first of all, they're going to bring up race, they're going to bring up gender, and they're going to bring up everything that's going to divide us, everything that has to do with divisiveness. Meanwhile, I don't care if you're Republican or you're Democrat, there's a uniparty that's running the country. And they use these, and everybody just laughs at what they call astrology. The Pope is the number one astrologer on the planet.
Mm.
They know. And the Vatican is the number one astronomical organization on the planet, bigger than NASA. The
Wow.
Vatican. They
Wow.
have the most. They have the most telescopes on the planet. The Vatican.
Mhm.
They have the biggest telescope on the planet called Lucifer. Of course, you know about that one. So,
Mhm.
as a constellation of extremes, the consciousness vacillates between three personalities: the Scorpion, the Eagle. What's the bird of the United States?
Eagle.
Eagle. And from the Eagle, going into, because that's why you get all this war.
Mhm.
Remember, the United States began with war, and we've had 123 wars up to this point since they started the United States corporate country and the corporation called the United States of America.
Mhm.
So it has three. When you go down to Scorpio, you have three different personalities. You have the Scorpion,
Mhm.
okay. You have the Eagle, and then you have the Phoenix.
Mhm.
Okay, so those three are locked up in Scorpio. So now we are in the part where the Eagle is about to go into the self-destructive mode of the Phoenix.
Mm.
And what's battling right now is what and who is going to control what comes out of the ashes.
Mm. Interesting.
You see? So now when the Phoenix rises, what will the Phoenix be actually more focused on? Because
Right.
it's about renewal. But renewing what? What are they giving us? And now you're talking about dumping the caste system, putting on a whole other reality now for people to think and to react to. You're
Mhm.
not going to hold on to your money. They're going to be monitoring everything you do. So, where do we take, or what do we prepare ourselves for when the phoenix does rise from the ashes? Because I warn people in the last 10 years that we have been under attack, and this attack is is to subvert us by dividing us by race, creed, color, gender, and the whole 9 yards. There will be some kind of conflagration that's going to test the United States of America. That's why I say to people to be prepared,
Mhm.
because it's going to come a time when they are going to shut down your electricity, and they're going to do it in patches, and they're most likely going to do it if they still have control in the Republican states. So if you're in the Republican states, they're going to shut down because they're already doing all that particular mischief in the Democratic states. Uh, be prepared, because remember, we have over 4 million people that came in through the borders. I'm talking about cartel. I'm talking about Chinese military, young men of military ages coming through the border. You got people from Iran coming through the border. You got people that's going to be masked up, looking like Popo, but not going to be Americans. That was already proven by my son when the time came, when he went up to one of the people all masked up, and he heard them speaking some kind of Slavic language to each other. So your military ain't going to be your military coming in to quell whatever uprisings that you have against the government that is definitely going to turn you into the enemy, or has turned you into the enemy. So the good side of cancer, which is the time when they would have wanted you to actually, back in the day, do elect your people. The good side of cancer is loyalty, protectiveness, caring, and having an intuitiveness enough to know whether or not one of your politicians is lying their asses off. So who are we today? We
Mhm.
are waiting down in November, the coldest one of the getting into fall, when everything is dying. So they say, okay, now let's go ahead and elect some people. Watch what happens as we go into 2024. I doubt if there's going to be even an election in 2024, because I think that something's going to happen where they're going to have to bring out the military. So July 4th in Sirius, uh, 13.5 degrees of Cancer. This is a good time for uh, essentially getting to know who you can trust. And I'm talking about even in your family. This is the time to test to see whether or not you have family when the time comes as we go into the next set of conflagrations when we hit into 2024. That's pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. What is it about the red, the white, and the blue on a astro theological level, if that's the right word, where they chose those particular colors to represent
Well, the
America?
blue is Masonic. The blue color with the background, the blue that you see is the Masonic colors. The red and the white were adopted from the assassins. The the people who were actually behind the founding of the corporation called the United States, which essentially was the United States was a corporation of King George. And King George turned us into constitutors. Look up that word, constitutor. A constitutor is someone who assumes someone else's debt. The United States, at one point, was a defunct corporation of King George. King George, at the time of the so called Revolutionary War, was not only the King of England, but the King of France at the same time. So he was fighting against himself to get you to think that you won something in the Revolutionary War. All you did, essentially, was to become a constitutor, which is assuming the debt of another. And that's where they actually played up all the way till 1931 to 33, when they took your gold to pay off that debt. So uh, if we're going to be dealing from historical perspectives and dealing from the history of what this country was really about, everything that you're seeing happening today is happening because the Constitution that your forefathers and your foremothers put together, which was the de jure Constitution, was circumvented and placed on the shelf by the corporation, and instituted in its place were two other constitutions that run this country right now. And that's the Constitution that runs the what do you call it, the Washington D.C., and there's a Constitution that runs out of of Great Britain. Great Britain runs out of the city of London. The city of London runs the Washington D.C. The city of London is an enclave, a 10-mile enclave, just like the D.C., the District of Criminals, is a 10-mile enclave. And you're a British citizen. All this large with your capital letter names and all that, that puts you into a British citizen. The Brits essentially conspired with Washington, who was a cousin of the Queen,
Mm.
and they conspired to get the American colonies, which were at that first time black, the first 13 colonies, and that we hired the white folks to be the administrators, but we were betrayed. White
Mm.
folks used to use our flag, the flag with the green evergreen tree
Mm-hmm.
in the I forgot the part they call where the stars would be. It used to be evergreen tree and red. That's what the Moors had at one point. The evergreen tree never died, so that was our symbol.
Mm.
So that what happened was there was a mutiny and there was a takeover of the United States and corporation. And what happened was the 13th Amendment, all I think was supposed to be 33 or 32 planks to the 13th Amendment, that got destroyed because Britain came and destroyed Washington, D.C. when we wanted to do the 13th Amendment to get away from her. And of course, we were betrayed again by Congress because most of them were essentially esquires. 13th Amendment was supposed to stop anybody who was connected to England by way of favors, by way of esquire, just like a lawyer and all these people. A lawyer is a foreign agent, just like the FBI are foreign agents. The FBI is contracted in London, England, in the inns of the court. So wow, there's a
Yeah,
battle
yeah,
going on outside, just like
yeah, yeah.
here.
No, definitely. Let me ask you this, Doc. So, obviously, our ancestors revered this Sirius star in the constellation, and they built so many monuments and pyramids that was in perfect alignment with it. My question to you, Doc, is depending on the position of Earth and where we're at in the solar system, does that impact the level of importance of Sirius? Meaning, it was way more important in antiquity than it is now, or is it just as important now as it was in antiquity?
That's the thing that most of us are not actually aligned with because our perspective of what reality is, which is why I put on the webinar. The Earth is not spinning through space.
Mm.
We have to stop that particular mentality. It completely distorts what really is happening. The sun is moving at a almost what you call uh, almost it's not a complete circle. It's a long circle, and then it comes back, and then it was up here, causing the days to be longer and longer in the northern hemisphere, and then after June the 25th, it began to open up its circle more and more, and now it's heading to the southern hemisphere where they will have their summer. The southern hemisphere just had its winter, and it's now getting ready to go. When we get our winter, it's getting ready to deal with their summer. So when you're looking at that, you're not looking at a universe where we're rocketing at 66,000 miles an hour around the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Our perspectives have been skewed. What we're watching is the sun's influence where it's positioned in what we see as the canopy of the dome. And during the time when the sun's influence is in that light code transmission, we get a kind of psycho-spiritual influence because that those stars and those configurations you see in the dome are actually the hieroglyphics of God, and they are interpreted through our emotions and through our inspirations and what it is that we're given, where the sun is at a particular time where the dome is, and where the moon is at a particular time where the dome is. The influence of all that light interacting with one another is what gives us our influence. But if we were really being influenced, if we were really jetting around the sun, then we would look back at Sirius over there by the time we came over on this side. So we don't see the backside of the sun the way that they have told us that we're revolving around it. That's the biggest. You notice why I said that is the mother of all
That's
deception.
right. You said that. You said that.
So we have to recalibrate how we read the stars and what the influences mean from a flat plane perspective, the way that our ancestors did it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the pictures, say, of ancient Kemet, and you see Nu, her body over the planet, and in this turn, Geb is the earth, which is masculine, which essentially becomes the son and the mother, the same way that you see Ast and Heru. Now, Nu is the stars, is representative of what you see as the Milky Way. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That never moves. Why? If you are spinning around the sun, why is it that you only see one side of this particular influence that we call the Milky Way? And at the edge part of the Milky Way, there is a doorway that the ancient Mayans called Xibalba. And we're
See.
supposed to be spinning towards it. No, we're not spinning towards it. The dome essentially is revolving, and it shows that we're revolving around what we call the polar star, and we showed that in our webinar. And where the sun is as that rotation is taking place, that's how we gear and that's how we read the stars. That's when we know when to plant. That's when we know when the seasons take place and so forth. It's where the sun and the moon are positioned because their movement creates a gigantic cyclotron within the endomed space. It keeps the electromagnetism, which keeps the influence of our environment and our atmosphere live. And we showed that how the dome keeps these electrical materials that come off of the dome, high electrical thing right above the clouds. I mean, way up above the clouds, you see coming down from the dome electrical things that they call spheres, and they call eus or elves. We are not on a planet spinning out into nowhere. We're not spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. We're not rotating around the sun at 66,000 miles an hour. And we are not moving through the galaxy at over 1 billion miles an hour. These are all lies. So we have to start first with eliminating the illusion and the lie that we are on a ball spinning into nowhere in outer space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I had a interesting conversation with Blue Pill, and we was talking about July 4th. And one thing he brought up was their calculations using. I guess they're using this round Earth model to calculate as far as when Sirius is in alignment with the Earth and with the Sun, and they use dates like July 4th And New Year's Day, actually, that our New Year's, the January 1st, is an important day for the Sirius and Earth as well. So if they're using these round Earth calculations, why are they correct? If they are using these round Earth
Because
calculations.
it's correct, because the entire system is based on it. It's
Mhm,
based on proving them as what is right and correct. If they were to go back to what the ancestors actually showed,
mhm,
because remember, it was the Catholic Church. You got to go back to what the Catholic Church did to everything. They destroyed all previous information having to do with the stars and with our very reality.
mhm,
See, for you to believe that Jesus Christ, the person that they say existed, that was God incarnate,
mhm, mhm,
for you to believe that BS,
mhm.
you have to believe everything else that comes from
That
that
goes with it.
place.
Right, right, right,
And so now, if they got you believing something that you know to be a lie,
mhm,
and you're not skeptical with everything that they got this fool Neil deGrasse or Neil deAsse Tyson, this fool going around pushing this globe Earth that we landed on the moon and we're going to Mars and to Venus and all of this stuff. And guess what? The Big Bang does not real no more. There's something beyond the Big Bang.
mm,
I mean, come on. A lot of
mm.
people don't care because they just got to get the rent and they got to feed their family and so
Yeah,
forth.
yeah.
And
Mhm,
so, if you believe that they what they're telling you, and if you look at the Big Bang, it's essentially them pimping Genesis and
mm.
coding it into their own language system, which they call quantum science or quantum physics.
Physics,
So I call upon people's righteous reason and logic and ask them, do they believe that a Caucasoid man, even a black man they call him, walked the earth who was God's only, only begotten son?
mm.
I want you to ask me, why is it that they found 145 similarities between Heru and Christ?
Mm, mhm,
So now the education system, what we call the education system, the books you read are actually edited in the Vatican before they are distributed in Western civilization.
mm,
So now, if you are believing that they're telling you that there was a person named Jesus Christ who, at 33 years of age, came out to lecture and after a while was killed and came back from the dead. And when he was crucified on the cross, all of the graves of the dead opened up and walked the earth.
mhm,
If you believe that
mhm.
garbage, why is it you're so quick to believe that we're on a spinning ball going at 1,000